Alrighty, it's time for a new series. We're gonna be building a garden out here in this green area, and we're gonna start by setting up some of these little garden beds. I'm gonna show you guys how to build these today. They're really easy. All you need is 2 pallets for the frame, and if you wanna add all these extra boards, you'll need a couple more pallets taken apart, and you can just use them for the outside. So, let's get after it, huh? For this project, we're going to be using 2 40 by 48 inch pallets, the standard size you can find anywhere in the US. You're going to want to keep your eyes out for pallets that are heat treated or kiln dried. Just look for the stamp that says HT or KD. First, we got to cut these little boys in half, so I'm using my circular saw and running it through each side of the pallet. This does not need to be perfect, guys. We're going to cover this up anyway, so I just roughly measured and tried to avoid nails while I was cutting through. If you do it this way, you probably won't cut all the way through the center 2x4, but you can give them a little twist and snap them apart. We're going to repeat this process on the second pallet, which is going to give us 4 pieces that we can use to build our entire frame. This pallet was a bit of a fighter and it didn't really want to snap apart. I started to hear the center 2x4 breaking, so instead of forcing it, I grabbed a little handsaw and just, gave it some zhush. Using these to build the frame is a pretty easy process. You're going to grab 1/2 from each pallet and put the butts together. Kind of like human centipede, but in reverse. Once you've got your corners lined up, you can nail through one 2x4 into the other one. I'm using these sinker nails that I have left over from other builds, but you could use screws too, really just whatever you have on hand. They'll hold together best if you can attach one 2x4 directly to the other one, so you might have to nail in at a bit of an angle to pull that off. I found it was easiest to drop my hammer through the little gap and just kind of go slow until I knew I was making good contact. You want to make sure your outside edges are flush. That's going to help us out later when we cover it up with more boards. And that's pretty much it for building the frame, guys. Just go around to each corner, nail it in, make sure it's holding together pretty tight, and you're good to go. Now we've got this nice light frame, and you could use it just like this if you wanted to, but to make it a little more glam, we're going to add some boards to the outside. I didn't have any pallet boards ready to go, so I just went ahead and pulled some apart. You've probably seen this if you follow my channel, but this is my technique. I use this blue tool called a pallet buster to pull the boards off, and once I've got a big stack of boards, I go through with this air compressed nail puncher thing and a crowbar and get the rest of the nails out. I've got a full video on this technique. If you want to check it out, I'll put a link in the description. You could totally skip this part if you want to, but I kind of want my beds to look a little bit more clean and hold the soil in a bit better. And since it's pretty easy for me to take pallets apart at this point, I figure why not? Let's just do it. Most pallets are going to have some wider boards that are about 5 or so inches, and you're going to want to set some of those aside to use for the top. The reason why we want the wider boards for this part is we want them to stretch across that entire top gap and leave a little bit of a lip on the outside edge. Jake, what's the lip for? Just hold your horses. You'll find out in a second. One thing I really like about this smaller bed size is you can kind of pick it up and move it around, plus it's going to be way less soil to fill it up. The final step of this build is to go around the outside edge with those boards we just made and tap them in. I'm using a cheap little staple gun and my air compressor to do this just because it goes a little faster, but you could literally use whatever you want. And this is where that lip comes in handy. You can just butt your boards right up against it and it makes the top super clean. Now that one side is totally covered up, we just have to trace a quick line and cut off all the excess. If you guys know me, you know I'm not the biggest fan of measuring and I don't really care if it's perfect, so I try to avoid it as much as possible. The first boards that we put on around the top are going to keep it a little bit more stable so you can move it around if you need to. And to save ourselves a little bit of lumber, we're going to use the cutoffs from the other side and patch them together on the next one. I leave about a 1/2 inch space between each board. That just speeds the process up and makes it so that if everything's not lined up perfectly, you won't really notice. I'd say all in all, including taking the pallets apart for the exterior, I was building this whole thing for probably about 3 hours. But if you had lumber on hand and you weren't filming, it'd probably go a lot faster than that. All right, there it is. The boards around the top give it more stability, and boards around the side are gonna keep the soil in a little better, so now I just gotta fill them up and see if I can actually grow some stuff.